Yes, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. And as promised, at least for those who watched the Andre Stojakovic podcast that came out on Monday night, we're here to talk about what's next for North Carolina. If you listen to that podcast, which I highly encourage you to do, if you haven't yet, go ahead and pause this and go watch that one and come back to this one, because it'll help kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about in this podcast. But AJ, obviously, like we discussed in that one, Carolina didn't get Andre Stojakovic. You'll learn kind of the reasons why that was in that podcast when you listen to it. But one big thing that we discussed in there was kind of the financial situation for the Tar Heels. And guys, we're recording this podcast right after we recorded the Stojakovic podcast. The numbers that were thrown out in that haven't miraculously changed in the 5 minutes later that it took us to hop on this recording. So Carolina finds itself in a situation like we've talked about where maybe don't have enough money to go out and get a player the caliber of Andre Stojakovic, or even less than that based on some of the numbers being thrown around. So, AJ, what's next for North Carolina? Because, again, like we've talked about, it still feels like there's a little bit of a hole on that roster for a bucket getter that Carolina could need. But based on what we're kind of hearing and seeing, it doesn't feel like they're going to be able to go out and get that.
Well, they have the same amount of money right now, as you said, that they had Friday and Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, so that's
win the lottery or anything like that. No.
That's not changing. If they're not going to break through the ceiling and splurge and go against the grain and go rogue and splurge for Andre Stojakovic, then they're not going to do it for anybody else that's left in the portal. I mean, he would have been the guy identified that fit the most and would have filled the greatest need. But that hole remains, and it's unlikely to get filled because the money is not there. They have about $700,000 left in the collective. Maybe give or take a little more and a little less. When they got Jaden Young, it didn't really cost anything. That was not a financial, there was no discussion really about that. So that's people that are saying, why'd they go get him? They could have gotten, that's totally unrelated, completely unrelated. So right now, if you think about the roster for next year, it's kind of what you think it is, as is right now, which is unfortunate because they do need a proven bucket getter. There may be bucket getters on that roster that become proven bucket getters over the course of the season. I think there's some guys that have a lot of potential to do that, but right now we don't see it that way. And we can only evaluate what we see right now. There is a chance that a Kyan Evans becomes a bucket getter. Derek Dixon is really good coming in as a freshman. If Seth is 33%, 34% all season from three with his slashing ability, suddenly that's a nice get right there. That's a nice part. Jonathan Powell, we don't know. He's pretty solid. Jaron Stevenson, pretty solid from out there. We just don't know. But a year ago, there was a lot of banking on Cade Tyson being a really good portal pickup that everybody thought that he would have no problem adapting from Belmont to North Carolina. Well, that didn't occur. A year ago, the staff wasn't going to jump through hoops to get certain big guys because they really believed Jalen Washington was going to break out. That didn't happen. So a lesson is, and why you and I kept talking about proven, so you got to have some proven parts.
Yes.
You don't want to go into a season with a bunch of nice parts that haven't been proven yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, you try on clothes before you bring them home, right? Mm-hmm. That's like going and buying a couple of suits and getting a tux for a wedding without trying it on and getting it tailored. Mm-hmm. You can't. It doesn't make any sense to do that. So this is probably the roster, unless somehow, some way, a desperate act of benevolence, someone forks over some cash and they go get a Jameer Watkins or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that name kind of been thrown around on Twitter once Stojakovic, went to Illinois. It was kind of like, oh, well, they'll just go get him now. And it's like, it's another reason we kind of wanted to hop on the podcast.
He's not going to come play for free. It's not like it's a tax write-off for him.
Yeah.
Massive $1.7 million tax write-off for him to come play.
Hey, I don't blame him. I don't blame him either.
Like he's donating to a charity or anything like that. I mean, this is a business and it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. It costs to do business. And North Carolina right now has spent a ton of money. There are only about 10 programs that are in their zip code financially with Portal, with the collective. But they basically spent theirs. And it's understandable how. Caleb Wilson's getting a ton. They had to give him a ton in order to get him. Henry Vasar getting a lot. Kyan Evans getting a lot. Jaron Stevenson, Henry Vasar, Kyan Evans, and Jonathan Powell, the four of them combined are plus $5 million. So then you've got Caleb Wilson. Then you got the other two freshmen, Isaiah Dennis and Derek Dixon. Then you got Seth Trimble. And let's not forget, they're paying James Brown and Zayden High as well.
Yeah.
You could get over $10 million pretty quickly, and they're over 11. There's nothing left.
Let me ask you this real quick, because I think a lot of people's heads have gone here as well. When they lose Drake Powell, they lose Van Allen Lubin, who some people are like, well, Lubin said he's coming back, and we've addressed that on a podcast of like, I don't really know if that's the case. It could still happen. Who knows? But those two guys leave, and you're kind of like, okay, Carolina's got some more money to spend. You get Jaden Young, and again, like we've talked about, not a lot of money went into that. It was completely separate from the Stojakovic situation. We talked about that on the Young podcast, by the way.
It didn't. So, that doesn't affect their ability to get anybody else.
Interesting, because when you got guys leaving, you're obviously guaranteed to pay them something in a contract. So you think that money would kind of go back into the pool of like, okay, now we've got.
Well, the Lubin money did.
Is it a situation of where if before Lubin even left, it kind of sounds like Carolina, correct me if I'm wrong, Carolina didn't have much money then either. Okay.
We reported they were done.
Yeah, I know.
2 weeks
ago.
And
they were done because a lot of it sounds like because the money just wasn't there. Is that
they were done
what was going on?
But think about 2 weeks ago, Lubin and Drake were in their plans. Now, you can easily say that Drake was in their plans, but it was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Mm-hmm. Drake's money didn't directly come. Like the collective had no money earmarked for Drake. That was coming elsewhere. So when he entered the draft, and clearly all the information we have is staying in the draft, and they kind of wanted him. They didn't want to sit around and wait. They said, look, we don't want to sit around and wait. We're not going to be able to get anybody. So, and he's both feet in. It's not like that kicked them back $1 million or something like that. So it's when Lubin left that kicked them back around 700,000.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe a little under 700,000 for Lubin.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because sometimes the timelines kind of get mixed up. You lose them, and you're like, well, I guess Carolina didn't have the money to begin with.
But even if they
lost them, you know.
But I don't know if Drake would have had $1 million deal with Carolina anyway.
Yeah.
So even if he did, let's say for the sake of discussion, it was $1 million. They got that back. They got 700,000 from Lubin, so they had 1.7. Who would they be able to get for 1.7 right now? Especially when there's only a handful of guys out there that would be worth spending money on, a good amount of money on, but there's still a lot of schools that have needs. The price is going to go up. Mm-hmm. If Jameer Watkins could have been had for I'm just throwing numbers out there for the sake of discussion. Let's say he was a 1.3 million guy, 1.4 million guy 10 days ago. Now he's maybe a 1.8 million guy. Yeah. Although I think he's been higher than that because given what Carolina's paid certain guys, I would think Watkins is at or above everybody but Vasar. Mm-hmm. I think Vasar is the most expensive one they got from the portal. Evans is next, and then he's around 300,000 less than Vasar.
And that brings up the next thing that I want to talk about, which is you kind of talked about earlier about those four guys that they brought in, about a little over $5 million, something in that ballpark. We'll say over $5 million.
Over 5, yeah.
Yeah. And you look at that because I'm looking at it from a Carolina perspective, AJ. I get the players want as much money as they can get. I totally understand that. I'd do the same thing if I was in their situation. You'd be stupid not to. But from a Carolina perspective, I look at it like you're an investment. This is a lot of money being forked out. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, and I get that prices go up. I get that we talked about this on the Stojakovic podcast. It feels like every year the numbers go up and it just gets crazier and crazier with the amount of money being thrown around right now. But I look at it and I say, from a Carolina perspective, I'm looking at my investment and I'm forking out over $5 million for really nice pieces again. But I don't know if just having nice pieces is enough, because we've talked about this. I'll give you 2 examples from preseason last year, AJ. We were told during media day and before that they expected Jalen Washington to be much improved and a really good player for them. Didn't really ultimately work out like that. There was an expectation when they brought in Cade Tyson that he was going to come in and be a big time player for me. Didn't really work out like that. Those are 2 very different examples, but examples of kind of being banked on that these guys were going to be producers for us. And for different reasons and in different ways, they maybe didn't produce as much as Carolina and Hubert Davis and co thought they would. And that obviously played a role in Carolina not having as good of a season. Now you're looking at bringing 4 new guys in, some freshmen as well. There is a very low percentage chance that you're going to hit on all of those guys. And they're just all going to come in and be fantastic for you and be exactly what you need next season. So it kind of begs the question of, okay, Carolina's out of money in this situation. They seems like they're done in the portal now. They still don't have a bucket getter, although, like you alluded to, it is a proven bucket getter. Because I hate sitting on podcasts and saying that like the 4 guys that they brought in, that like none of them are going to come in and be really good. There is a very real chance that they will, and there's also a legitimate chance that some guys will come in and struggle. That's kind of the line you kind of have to toe on a little bit when you're talking about these things. But the key word is proven bucket getter. I'm not seeing anybody like that really even on the roster for North Carolina. And that for me is a concern. I'm not trying to be negative about the parts. It's just when I can't pencil a guy or 2 in for, okay, look at that. Look at that resume right there. It's really impressive. We know we're kind of going to get there. When I can't do that on a roster, especially North Carolina's roster, coming off the season that they just had, that for me is a red flag. I don't think I'm in the minority there, but just whole money situations, it's just such an interesting one, because it seems like a proven bucket getter should have been a top priority. And it's almost May, and you're kind of sitting here like, we don't have that money. We can even get it if we wanted it, AJ.
Hubert said, 5 days after the Ole Miss game in his last radio show, they're going to go after length. They've achieved 2 things. The first 2 things that they needed that they set out to achieve, they've achieved. They're much bigger, and they're going to be much better defensively. Okay? So they've done that. So in that respect, they're better off. What they don't have, and the only thing they didn't get, was that bucket getter. Okay? Now, for a good part of the portal, it took Ian a while to enter. I don't honestly, I can tell you, I don't know what the conversations were like. I know what the Ian camp thinks a little bit. And I never thought he was going to be back. It was never going to be a matter of money for him. And he didn't get a whole lot more prior to St. John's than he would have gotten from North Carolina. Some guys, here's the thing. For schools, the portal is strictly an investment. It's buying stock, and they're short-term stocks. For players, there's 2 ways that they look at the portal. 1, cash grab. 2, investment in my future. The ones who think about the investment in their future are generally the ones that have a better chance of playing for a while at the next level, whatever level that is, NBA, whatever it is. A guy like Ian may have made a decision for that reason. A lot of guys make decisions strictly on cash because this is their one chance to cash in while they can. It's a very small window in life, so go ahead and do it. But schools, the programs, I'm not a big investment guy. I'm not a Wall Street Journal guy, or I don't read the stock market stuff. But those cashing in those CDs or whatever they are, those short-term investments, that's what the players are. And I think the investment that they made in Henry Vasar is going to pay off. I think the one sure thing that they got is I think he's going to be really good. The fact that Arizona worked so hard to bring him back and was telling him you could be Big 12 Player of the Year, a lot of NBA scouts are very intrigued by him. David Sisk knows NBA scouts. He knows a lot of college coaches. He's on some little group chats with some of those guys. They love Vasar. They think Vasar was a steal for Carolina. Nobody else was, but Kyan Evans is a super interesting prospect. But who else is? I think you kind of know what Jaron Stevenson's, at least his baseline is. We've seen it for 2 years in Alabama. But is he a guy that can actually hit toward his potential. We won't know until this time next year. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Powell, if he's who he was this year, he's a piece off the bench. So they lost RJ. They lose Elliott. They lose Ian.
5 to end the season.
They lose Drake. They lose Venn. They lose Jay Witt. They didn't replace. If you were to just stack quarters for what they lost, like in terms of total value, you'd never be able to see it on the screen here. If they were to stack the quarters and what they brought in, I don't know, it's kind of going up like right there. You'd see it right at the top of the screen. Like they didn't replace in terms of quality, like talent and done that production, what they lost. Now, that doesn't mean that this group's not going to be better for Carolina. That wasn't a very good team last year.
No.
And it was an ugly team a lot of the time. This club might be better connected. They might feed off one another better. They're going to have a lot of guys that can shoot threes. Maybe that makes them more difficult to defend. And if there's a lot of cutting and slashing, you don't need the prototypical point guard, which I'm not sure Kyan Evans is. So it may play out that they're better because the components work better together. But strictly from, which filet mignon is better, which one is bigger, the one that left is bigger and better than the one that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's been our point, I think, especially over the last few podcasts that we've done on this topic, is it's like, it's not that there's not good pieces there. I mean, we've done like deep dive podcasts on at least 3 of these guys, and we'll do more, on I think we still have Jaron Stevenson and Jaden Young to do, and I'm sure we'll do those at some point. And again, there's a lot to like, but it's that kind of guarantee and that proven thing where you look at it and you're like, okay, Carolina could, these guys could be fantastic if they come in and maybe do something they haven't really done before. If they come in like a Jonathan Powell, for instance. Jonathan Powell could be a fantastic player for North Carolina, AJ, next year if he comes in and like doubles his production, maybe a little bit less than doubles his production. Then you're looking at him and saying, okay, yeah, like we didn't know we were going to get that level of player when we signed him. We liked the parts there, but man, he's come in and like exceeded expectations a little bit. That's not going to happen with everybody you brought in, which I think is why we've stressed the importance of, I'll use the analogy again. I said Carolina's class after they got Jaden Young was a C-. I said, if you get a bucket getter like Stojakovic, it goes up to a B+ for me, and you can make a case for higher than that. It feels like this portal window and this portal class for Carolina, it's not that far away from being pretty dang good. It's just that skyline thing that you've talked about, AJ. It's a really nice looking skyline, but it's like you look at it and you're like, man, there's just something missing that would make it pop a little bit more. And I think a proven bucket getter is that. And I don't know. I think a proven bucket getter just completely changes the vibe of this class, in my opinion. And they don't have. And
a guy like him, Stojakovic, he's not a 3-point shooter, so to speak. He's an everything guy. Only 32% of his shots are from the perimeter this past season. He's a guy that could take you, get a dude on his hip. He could post up. He's got a beautiful, beautiful mid-range game, just a gorgeous mid-range game. So he's a guy that scores all over the place. If you look at what they have, we're still, Seth is still trying to fine-tune his game, finishing around the basket in traffic, hitting the three more consistently. Those are things that he hasn't shown that he could do on a consistent basis yet, and they need that. And then with Jonathan Powell, he didn't show at all a driving game at West Virginia. He only attempted 25 free throws. He played 30 minutes a game and started all season, just almost all season. So he's not a guy that draws fouls. So that might be okay with an Elliott Cadeau, for example, a higher assist guy, a Cadet Cota who will find you if you're open. But Kyan Evans, so far from what we've seen, isn't that guy. He's a scoring point guard. He's not someone who's going to break you down and eyes behind his head and find Jonathan Powell camped out wide open for a three. At least he hasn't shown that. That could be in his game. That might be one of the reasons why his investment is North Carolina, because of the platform, because of the quality competition, and the nice payday he's getting. We can't envision any of that right now because we haven't seen that in their games. I've watched a lot of Kyan Evans games. I think he's a really nice player. And I was a big Colorado State guy. I think that Minnesota got themselves a really good coach with Nico Medved. And Colorado State damn near got to the Sweet 16. If traveling was called, they would have been in the Sweet 16. And Kyan Evans was a massive reason why. So I like him. He's a good player. He's a winning type player. However, if you think about these pieces meshing, we're going to drive ourselves crazy trying to make it work or make it not work, however you want to look at things. We're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. But you're 100% right, and this has been our narrative for the last week now. They need a bucket getter. They need a proven one, a proven guy who can put the ball in the basket when they absolutely need it, because they struggled at that at times last year, and they had a bucket getter. And they struggled at times last year getting those buckets when they had a point guard. For all of his turnovers, Elliott can create, man. And Elliott's got eyes in the back of his head, and Elliott will for every turnover, there's 2 highlight reel assists. And they still didn't get those buckets at absolute time. They needed the buckets a lot of the time. Actually, ironically, he got one of them at Notre Dame. So you got to look ahead. We have to look at what's in front of us to kind of project. And I think that there will be a massive question mark on this team when the season starts. There's a lot of nice parts. Who knows? Maybe Caleb Wilson's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
The book on him is that he's not much of a scorer yet, but he can defend like crazy and get you some rebounds. Kind of like maybe what Armando was like as a freshman, but maybe a little bit more fine-tuned than Armando was. Who knows? Although that was a terrible team that year when Armando was a freshman. So I'm not going to suppose too much, because that's what this team is. You're not just supposing with the parts they brought in, you're supposing with the parts that are returning. Last year, you supposed with some of the parts they brought in, or assumed, and there was only a little bit of, everybody thought Elliott, well, naturally he's going to be a lot better, and he was solid as a freshman. And you had the reigning ACC Player of the Year coming back, and it didn't work. So you weren't supposing every spot on the roster. Right now you are. Every spot on the roster, well, suppose he's this much better, he's that. And I love Seth to death. I think Seth Trimble's a wonderful dude. I love talking to him. I'm so glad he's back at Carolina, because he is a go-to guy after games, wins or losses.
Yeah.
He's a really, really good dude. And I'm in a day and age when we don't have 4-year guys much anymore, I'm so glad he's a 4-year guy for selfish reasons and for journalistic reasons, because at least he's someone I know I can trust with what he says. However, there's 2 aspects to his game that must improve. If he wants to make a ton of money after college, he's got to finish around the rim. Hubert tells him all the time, dunk the damn thing, not damn, darned thing, dang thing.
Yeah, Hubert did say that.
Dunk the dang thing. Why in the fudge do you try to do a finger roll in traffic? And he's got to be consistent with the 3. He knows it. None of this is news to him, because he's talked about it. So other than that, nobody knows what James Brown is. Nobody knows what Zayden High is. And that's all that's back.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I think that's the one thing we haven't even talked about that much yet, is like, we're talking about how all these guys have a lot of potential and they're nice parts that they brought in, but you kind of ignore the fact that it's like, yeah, that's great, especially on a team that maybe has some good parts, proven parts returning. You look at who Carolina's got. You just named the 3, AJ. Seth Trimble, Zayden High, who wasn't even on the team last year, and James Brown, who is we've said since day one, is a project and a guy that I don't know how much he's going to,
a multi-year project.
But yeah, it's a multi-year project. He's a guy who barely played last year. So you're looking back and you're like, we got like our 6-man returning, and that's it. And then we bring all this potential in.
So that's the start.
But it's the 2, yeah, for sure. But it's the 2 Ps, AJ. I mean, 6-man last year. It's the 2 Ps. It's potential and proven. I feel a lot better going into a season. Call me crazy if I was a head coach, having a lot more proven guys than having a lot more potential guys, AJ, because potential is not always fulfilled. Potential oftentimes is, and sometimes the potential can be reached, but maybe the ceiling wasn't as high as we thought it was. That happens a lot too. So,
well, I'm going to double down on what you're saying, and I'm going to add one thing to what you're saying, because I agree with you in a lot of ways, especially in this situation, because Hubert has proven it takes him a while to figure it out. So it took him a while to figure it out year 1. He's just never meshed in year 2. Year 3, they got it going, but they were pretty good. But they were better later. If you go back and look at some of the losses they have, they were a little bit disjointed. The UConn game, they started getting it going when they beat Oklahoma and Charlotte, and that was right before Christmas. And we didn't really think that team was what it turned out to be until mid-January. We didn't even envision that. So it took a little time for them. And this past year, it took way too long. And he already knew the personnel. Now he doesn't know the personnel very well, and he needs to prove. We talk about guys that need to up their game. Hubert needs to up his game.
Mm-hmm.
If Seth Trimble needs to be more consistent with the three and finish better, Hubert needs to know his team sooner. He and the coaching staff, they need to have their powwows, say, yeah, this makes sense. Let's roll with it.
Mm-hmm. You
can't wait, especially with all these parts that you need to step forward. They wait as long as they did this past year. It'll be too late. They won't make the tournament. Mm-hmm. So he needs to learn his team better. He needs to get a feel for him better. And with the discussions that he has with Brad Frederick, who's in his ear a lot, Sean May and Jeff Lebo and Pat Sullivan and Marcus Page, they need to really get this team and understand it much earlier than they have. Mm-hmm. Because and it's going to be a lot more work because they have so much more new stuff to get to know.
So much, man.
Now, other than Seth Trimble, it's all new that's going to play.
I know, and that's and then I can't remember if we brought this up on the Young podcast. We brought it up on something. Maybe it's just a podcast and never saw the light of day. But we talked about, okay, who's Hubert Davis's top 3 transfers in no particular order. I think a lot of people's names automatically go to Brady Manick, Harrison Ingram, Cormac Ryan. I think a lot of people could agree those are in the top 3. What do all those guys have in common? Again, they were all experienced. Cormac Ryan, proven guy in the ACC, been around forever. Harrison Ingram, a guy that Carolina recruited out of high school, very heavily, highly ranked, went to Stanford, was the guy there for a couple of years. Again, proving kind of guy that you can look at and say, oh, that's a nice part. That fits really well here, and you kind of know what you're getting there. And then a guy like Brady Manick, a guy that was super experienced at Oklahoma. It took him a little time to get going like the team did, but ultimately ends up being kind of like a cult hero for North Carolina fans, especially. What do they all have in common?
14th all-time leading scorer in Oklahoma history.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oklahoma's been in 6 Final Fours. It's not a ragtag program. It's a really solid program historically. He's the 14th all-time leading scorer, and it took Dawson Garcia banging his head on the floor at Chestnut Hill right in front of me on January 2nd. It was supposed to be a January 1st game, and then him exiting for reasons other than what were given in order for Brady to get the starting nod. He was right in front of you. He had the 14th all-time leading scorer in Oklahoma history, and he's playing 22 minutes. So, to your point, we have to be objective here, and we have to be honest with people. Hubert needs to do a better job, period. His staff needs to do a better job. They need to recognize what they have, and they need to mold it together. Don't screw around with stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like messing with the batting order in baseball. I have experience with that. The guy that runs that team screwing up the batting order every night, changes every night. You screw things up. You got to identify what you are early, and whatever exhibition game they play, they should play 2. Play a secret scrimmage and one in public, and go play on the road against really good teams. Mm-hmm. Just get exposed, and then sit down. You use those as labs. Roy Williams used to use the first part of the season as labs. No one's ever going to confuse Roy with being a scientist, right? But there was a science to how he went about it, because the guy he learned from went about it like a science as well. I'm not saying Hubert doesn't. Hubert has only coached for 4 years, but he's going to be coaching for his job, and he's going to be doing it with a roster that needs to come together. Mm-hmm. If you ever remember that old, I can't remember the name of the game where you shoot the little things in the sky and they all break into different pieces and you have to keep shooting.
Yeah.
What was that called? Asteroids or something? Not asteroids.
Like Galactica? Is that what you're talking about? Like
yeah, it was something else. But anyway, like there's a lot of parts out there and they need them to come together. Mm-hmm. And Hubert and his staff have to bring them together and then determine what parts to march forward with the most. That takes time. But he's had a lot more that he already knew previously, and it took too long. So to me, the other question mark, other than the personnel not having a shot getter, is Hubert Davis. He's got a lot to prove.
Absolutely, man. I mean, and you said like earlier about I think what you were trying to say is like in order for this team to be successful, it feels like Hubert's going to have to do a really good head coaching job this year, because any coach would. It's not anything on Hubert right now, but when you just look at the sheer amount of guys that were in your program that are no longer there, and these new guys that have know little to nothing about North Carolina basketball and how it works, especially the expectations and the criticism and the spotlight that comes with it. We haven't even talked about that. your head coach kind of has to guide you through it. And it feels like we're in a situation now where, and it's too early to tell because you never know. I mean, as my cat sits in my lap, you never know what you're going to get out of these guys. They might come in and be, all these guys might be spectacular. They might come in and they might struggle. Who knows? Well, only time will tell. But on the surface, where we're at right now, with all these new pieces coming in, it just feels like a situation where in order for North Carolina to have a good season next year, their head coach is going to have to do a really nice job, and the staff as well. And like we've talked about, the evidence that you just laid out, that is a valid question mark going into the season. And I think that's one of the reasons Carolina fans, I think for the vast majority of them, are a little bit underwhelmed with this portal window, because it's like, yeah, like there's potential here that we've talked about. We're kind of missing that go-to bucket getter, but man, like we've still got a little bit of question marks about Hubert Davis and what he can do. I think it's been something that's been talked about since he took over the job, AJ. So I don't know, man. Time will tell what this team and what this season turns out to be, but where we sit right now, I can't sit here with a ton of confidence and say this is going to be a really good basketball team next year, because there's just not a lot of tangible evidence that I can look at and pencil in guys for that would lead me to that conclusion.
But it has the potential to be that.
Yeah, and that's the key word.
In order for it to be that, so much has to go well, including Hubert learning his team sooner than he has.
Yes.
So the parts could be phenomenal, but you still need good coaching. You still need a coach that knows his parts well and can move those pieces around. And the jury's still out on Hubert about some of those things. Again, he's only coached for 4 years. I'm a much better journalist now than I was after 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way it rolls. So, 100%. But if people can expect certain improvements from Seth Trimble, which everybody has publicly said, then they could say the same thing about the head coach, because there's 100%. Certain areas he needs to improve on as well.
100%, man. It's a fantastic point. I think it's a good place to wrap this up, and we could sit here and talk about this forever, but I think we've hit on everything we kind of wanted to hit on. Like I said earlier, I hope you've seen it by now, but if not, go watch the Andre Stojakovic podcast as well. That'll provide a little bit of context about what we've talked about in here a little bit more. So yeah, man, it's been an interesting portal window. And let me end it on this too, just to clarify. As of right now, is it your expectation that Carolina is done in the portal? Is that, I know
our source, our multiple sources very close to the situation have been very clear, indicating to us that they're done.
Okay.
But it's the portal.
Yeah, you just never
college
know.
Basketball in 2025.
You just never know, man.
I'm never going to say 100% because until it happens, it ain't happened.
Yeah, that's what I always say with this portal, man. It ain't over until it's over.
The strong expectation is yes.
Okay. Yeah. Again, money obviously playing a big factor.
I am not putting a flag in the soil on that one.
No, I
have the flag in hand.
Yeah.
I've already charged uphill. I'm just kind of waiting there a little bit,
Yeah, you don't want to plant it too early.
The rest of the guys to make it up there, because I'm up here and I'm not out of breath yet.
Yeah.
So I still have the energy to plant it. I just haven't planted it yet.
There are no guarantees really in this whole portal world we live in right now. So yeah, sources, seems like they're done, but you just never know. So I think we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, AJ. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We want to hear from you guys below. Like, what do you guys think about the roster? Do you think it's enough? Are you worried about this season coming up? Are you optimistic that these players can come in and put together a really good squad for the Tar Heels next year? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell too. And I didn't blast this in the other one, AJ. Shame on me. Head on over to Facebook and Twitter. Links are below. Just give us a follow. We're going to be giving away some more free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com. What are we? I think we're close to, are we over 15 on Facebook?
We're almost to 15 on Facebook. We're about 20,600 on YouTube, and we're just about 36,000 on Twitter.
Yeah. So we're getting closer to that 36 number. We're trying to get to 40 on Twitter, 15K on Facebook, and then 25 is the next goal on YouTube. So guys, just go on over to all those channels. And once we hit those milestones, we'll be giving away some more free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I know you've already given away some, AJ.
Yeah, we've given away 5. We've given away 5 so far.
Yeah, we're not too far away. I think we can, the all season keeps going like it does. I think we can continue to climb this thing, and, we can hit 25.
It's May in a couple of days.
I know, it's crazy, man.
May is when I'm supposed to be a dad and a husband again. I'm supposed to push back and say, so the trees have bloomed.
The portal said absolutely not, AJ.
I see it in my walks, but when the other day I did all 10,000 in one swoop. I did about 11,008 in one walk because I worked the entire time when I was walking. I mean, I'm sending you voice text. You're getting a voice text from me today, a super long voice text with like 50 words that are probably jumbled.
No, that voice text was pretty good, AJ. I thought you typed it until I read the last paragraph. It was pretty good.
Well, you know, my thumb sucks, but I was trying to talk slowly and right up to it. And I walk by and there's these guys doing yard work and stuff. They look at me like I'm crazy. But that's what I did today. I sent you along one. I sent Brian along one, a few other people, and I'm sending myself emails about things, about content things. And that's what I'm doing. I'm walking and working, baby.
Never stop.
Never off the clock.
The grind doesn't stop over here at Tar Heel Illustrated.
But I would like for it to stop on May 1st because it would be tragic if I still have to grind after. I'll still work, 40, 50 hours a week, but it's not like what we're doing now.
Yeah, you get to just pull it back a little bit would be nice, right? This portal doesn't help. I'll tell you that for free, AJ. I'll tell you that for free.
You don't need to tell me that for free.
The good old days, man, before the portal opened, right? The good old days in terms of our workload during April. Everything else is kind of cool.
I do off-season content that I create that we have that's not very time sensitive that we could put in the hopper, so to speak. I do it so I can craft time for myself. So every off-season I'll have anywhere from 60, 70 written articles. We do a bunch of podcasts, and I'll have like a series or something. I don't do the series like I used to anymore. I do more short type series of rankings or something like that. That's part of it, but most of it is statistical breakdowns, feature stories, that kind of thing. And by Wednesday afternoon, which is April 30th, the goal, and I'm on track for it, I'll have 97 written pieces.
Wow.
Because I'm still going to work a ton. I will focus a lot on recruiting, but that's the only way I can get through April and then go into May, June, and July, kind of like a normal human being.
Yeah, being able to decompress a little bit. Yeah,
decompress and go back home to DC area and see some friends. And I got to get back on the book.
Yeah, sure.
I'm writing a book, and I haven't touched it since toward the end of October. I haven't touched it.
I believe it, man.
It sucks. So I got to take a few days, exhale, watch the Orioles lose again. And then, this past week they lost 24-2. The next game they lost 7-1. They got one hit. And then they got swept by the Detroit Tigers this weekend.
I'll just say this. I can relate, man. I'm a Manchester United fan. Watch every single game. I live and breathe it. That is my thing. And we are having the worst season in my lifetime. Worst Premier League season. We're like 15th place out of 20 right now. We suck. So I have sympathy for you, man. It is tough when you're just watching
You're supposed to be good? The Orioles were supposed to win 95 to 100 games.
Okay, it's a little different. We weren't supposed to be 15th or 16th bad, whatever the heck we are now. So yeah, it's similar. We weren't supposed to be like win the league or anything, but we've never been this bad. It's abysmal, AJ. It's abysmal. I feel your pain. I feel your pain, man.
What did Nicolas Cage say in Raising Arizona? That is what that there is. I got it in. I got the Nicolas Cage.
You got it in. You alluded to it before the podcast. I didn't know if you'd ever actually be able to slip it in here, but you found a way, man. Right. A buzzer beater right there, AJ. And on that note, we're getting.
I'm a bucket getter.
Yeah,
I'll take that 700,000.
Yeah, heck yeah, man.
I'm good in the tank top out there.
Imagine 700,000 not being enough. God, what world do we live in? I'd bite your hand off for that right now. I mean, you know what I'd do with $700,000, AJ? God. Wouldn't that be nice, man? I mean, you may never see me again. The internet may
I'd
never
have
see
a better
me
mic if I had $700,000. That's for sure. I get that microphone you've been bugging me about buying for.
We're gonna get you one, man. We're gonna get you one. It'll be a glorious.
See, that's the thing. I can't. You see my office? It's disgusting.
Yeah, just throw in 5 hours.
Like May 3rd, I'm gonna clean my office. It's gonna be a great day in the Jones household.
Yeah, man. May can't come soon enough at the Jones household, man. It really can't. Unbelievable, guys. Again, we appreciate everybody as always, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.